one of the article that I was reading mentioned 30% of crop inputs are counterfeited, which is a huge number.
Wow.
Imagine a farmer putting in all that effort and then eventually figuring out that nothing is working well, and the reason behind it was the product that they purchased was not genuine.
Can you set up some context on the seed supply chain dynamics? So how are seeds actually made, and the actual supply chain of probably from the farm to your plate, what goes in between, maybe from farm to another farm. Just give us some context of the entire supply chain, the dynamics, and current challenges which you have seen, which the seed supply chain faces.
So there are multiple players, and let's talk about India specifically now since we are here. There are multiple players in India which are into seed manufacturing. Most of them are located around the southern belt of India, near Hyderabad specifically. So you'll find a lot of these companies based out of Hyderabad and surrounding areas. And a lot of the seeds get manufactured there. We are mostly private players in this company, and most of them are multinationals. And there are a few very well-known Indian companies as well which are into seeds, right? And if you ask a agriculture scientist about how seeds are made, I'm sure he'll give a very detailed answer about that. But from a layman's perspective, as you would understand, there are specific farms meant for seed production. So it means these factories would have specific farms with very controlled environment, ensuring that the quality of the seeds they get is consistent, because each and every seed that gets made, it has to go through a quality check, at least on paper, right? So in terms of the germination quality, the moisture, so a lot of those parameters are taken into account, and all of those parameters have to match or have to be within a certain range, right, for it to be sold. And every time a seed manufacturer sells a pack of seeds, those parameters have to be on the package as well, right? So starting from there, once the seeds are picked up from the plants or the farms, they then go to the factories where they get packed and further processed, and then after that of course get packed, and then the package is then sent to be sold through a distribution chain. It would involve a typical distribution chain of a C&F agent, a distributor, followed by maybe a retailer and then a sub-retailer, and the farmer procures these seeds from the retailers, and then they would obviously, as per the instructions of the company, based on what pesticides work, what soil works, etc. All of that, considering all of that, they will plant those seeds and of course try to give it the best environment so that they get the right amount of yield. And then after that, that's when the crop grows. You
get a yield.
You get the yield of the crop, and then whatever the seed is for, let's say if it's for wheat or rice or maize or whatever, once the crop is grown, the actual product is then extracted and then further processed to be sold to consumers, right? So that's in a very brief, a shortened version of the supply chain.
So you used a very specific word which I had never associated with seeds. So let's first talk about that. You used a word called quality of seeds.
Right.
Now I have heard of quality of basmati rice from biryanis. Right. You have some big brands which market that. But I never really thought of quality of seeds which actually make that rice. Rice is also a seed, but it goes through a lot of process to come to my plate. Correct. So let's talk about the seed. So when you say quality of seeds, so what exactly is the quality of seed, and how do they actually monitor this quality, especially the big brands which are seed manufacturers?
So the process here is that the brands have to basically do a test of the samples. So whatever samples or whatever product comes to them, the seeds that come to them, they have to basically get a certificate for that, right? And typically, if you are registered seed supplier or seed manufacturer, that's a process you need to follow. So, and there are multiple parameters which you need to report, right? And in terms of, depending on the product, the parameters might differ, but the major ones, of course, is your germination quality, your moisture content, your yield that can come out of it, or your outturn, for example. So a lot of these parameters get captured, and based on the product or the crop, this might vary. So, and it's very important because a difference in any of this might actually affect your yield. So knowing your quality of your seed and ensuring that it conforms to that is also very important.
What challenges have you seen which the brand experiences in this space and the farmer experiences in this space?
So one of the major challenges that I've seen is, there is a lot of counterfeiting that happens in this industry.
Okay.
One of the article I was reading mentioned 30% of crop inputs are counterfeited, which is a huge number.
Wow.
Imagine a farmer putting in all that effort and then eventually figuring out that nothing is working well, and the reason behind it was the product that they purchased was not genuine. Sometimes they may not even understand or realize that it was not a genuine product,
Right.
and they might then tend to blame the brand, saying, "Hey, your seeds are not of a good quality," and then they might stop buying that. So it not just affects the farmers, the brand as well. So counterfeiting is a major issue and it's a major threat. Of course, there are other issues in terms of ensuring the supply chain is working smoothly, is efficient, ensuring there is product availability. As I said, seasonal business. So most of these companies tend to produce, before the season starts. Ensure they are bulked up as much as possible, and then they try to sell within the season, right? So ensuring that the product also remains fresh and the shelf life is good is also very important. So these are some of the other challenges. Plus, the other challenge is for a brand perspective. Apart from counterfeiting, tracing the seed when it goes to the supply chain, that becomes an issue because sometimes, when it comes to selling and getting the return of the goods back, a lot of it, a lot of things might go wrong. What they actually sell out may not, the same product may not come back. So being able to trace.
I didn't understand. Can you elaborate a little bit on this?
So, for example, when I send a product to a distributor, the distributor sends it to a retailer, then sells it to a farmer, and let's say there's a return of product for whatever reason. Now, to be able to understand how this return happened and where the origin of the product was, right? So you need to understand that all of these companies are not going to have a single manufacturing unit. They'll have manufacturing unit across.
Right.
So now to be able to understand which manufacturing unit it was made from, which distributor it went to, and where things might have gone wrong is also very important for them to know.
So they need to know if there is a problem in a specific farm where it's getting manufactured. Where is that farm?
Where is that farm? Or could be a distributor, something went wrong in the distributor end. So to be able to trace that product back to the origin or through the supply chain is also very important for them.
Got it.
So that becomes very important, and not just from a perspective of a business use case, but also as a government requirement.
Right. So let's talk about that. What kind of compliance regulations or challenges you have seen when you're dealing with government as a seed manufacturer?
So, like I said, again, it's a vast field. Not a legal expert, but from what I understand, there's a government regulation which mandates some kind of a 2D code to be put in on products, so that a farmer or any food inspector or any company, anybody from the government can verify the origin, the provenance, the quality parameters, the manufacturing unit, certain parameters which the government has mandated, right? Like manufacturing date, expiry date, etc. And apart from that, of course, there are other regulations like the label has to be of a certain format, it has to be registered, etc. So all that also is very important. Plus, I'm sure besides that, like I said, in terms of your certifications, your parameters, quality parameters about the seed, they also quite important. Hence, those things are something which need a company or a brand needs to be aware of. Plus, all of these companies have their own regulation teams which actually very well liaised with the government, and I'm sure there are a lot of other regulations they need to follow and ensure are in place.
So let's talk a little bit more about this number which you mentioned. 30% is counterfeited in the seed space.
Yes.
So I'm curious now. Unlike other industries, for example, when I'm buying an iPhone, I highly doubt someone will be able to counterfeit this.
You may be surprised.
But it's very challenging, I'm assuming. Like, especially at least as an end consumer, when I use the OS, when I see the hardware, software, I think roughly I can tell ki, okay, fake hai ya original hai. And second, a company like Apple has superb mind presence in consumers. So they'll be educating that buy from authorized resellers and dealers. But in case of seeds, honestly, from a visual perspective, if I take one pack of wheat here, seed of wheat here, and one more seed of wheat here, and I just interchange their packaging, at least from an initial perspective, I will not be able to tell what is original and what is fake.
So that is a challenge, right? If I'm able to replicate the packaging itself, a lot of times it's easy to dupe the consumers or the farmers.
And the poor farmer will find out during yield.
I may not even find out, right? He may not even find out. He might blame
the brand
or blame some other conditions for poor yield, right? A lot of times we also need to understand there are people involved within the distribution itself which try to sell fake products, right? Especially fake seeds. So you might have somebody who might be a retailer trying to push a non-genuine product, and a lot of the farmers trust that last mile, the retailer.
Right.
So when a retailer gives you something, the farmers tend to trust that and tend to use that. So sometimes even people in the distribution chain are also involved, right?
Wow.
So then it becomes even more difficult.
So you guys have worked with a lot of brands. How often have you seen the people in the distribution chain being involved?
Oh, quite often. I mean, at least that's one of the major challenges, right? I know people in the distribution chain are involved in, like we work with plywood, and we know for sure people, retailers tend to sell fake plywoods as well.
You work with seed brands also.
So yeah.
Have you seen the same thing happen here?
So yes, so it happens as well. So I mean, any industry for that matter, somebody in the distribution chain, is going to be involved. Of course, it may be outside the distribution chain as well, but it's easier to sell fake products in an existing chain rather than outside, right? So then you cannot rely on the chain. You cannot rely on your partners. So then you need to make sure that you take matter up in your own hands to ensure that the farmer gets the right product, right? It's not just about the farmer. Imagine if I'm growing a crop made out of seeds which are fake seeds, which obviously are not conforming to the standards which the government has specified. It will have serious health consequences when you consume crops.
For sure.
And then I'm sure a lot of times your insecticides or pesticides that you use
may interact in the wrong way.
Which are fake, obviously would be made out of chemicals which are very harmful, not just to humans, but even environment. So that leads to a lot of issues, and then that could be catastrophic. So it's very important that brands ensure that they are able to prevent fake products in their brand name.
Right.
And that's something which is, of course, we do help out brands in doing that. But I think overall, if a brand is in this sector or segment, they need to have a brand protection strategy for themselves, for sure.